God loved King Solomon, and King Solomon loved God. That is, until Solomon decided to marry women from other nations. You see, these women worshiped idols. Their hearts were turned away from God, and eventually, so was the heart of King Solomon. Hello, I'm Kathy Bartow. Listen to 1 Kings chapter 11. King Solomon loved many women besides Pharaoh's daughter. They were from other lands. They were Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. The Lord had warned Israel about women from other nations. He had said, "You must not marry them. If you do, you can be sure they will turn your hearts towards their gods." But Solomon continued to love them anyway. He wouldn't give them up. He had 700 wives who came from royal families, and he had 300 concubines. His wives led him astray. As Solomon grew older, his wives turned his heart towards other gods. He didn't follow the Lord his God with all his heart, so he wasn't like his father David. Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth was a female god of the Sidonians. He also worshipped Moloch. Moloch was a god of the Ammonites. The Lord hated that god. Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He didn't completely obey the Lord. He didn't do what his father David had done. There is a hill east of Jerusalem. Solomon built a high place for worshiping Chemosh there. He built a high place for worshiping Moloch there too. Chemosh was the god of Moab. Moloch was the god of Ammon. The Lord hated both of those gods. Solomon also built high places so that all his wives from other nations could worship their gods. These women burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. The Lord became angry with Solomon. That's because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel. He had appeared to Solomon twice. He had commanded Solomon not to worship other gods, but Solomon didn't obey the Lord. So the Lord said to Solomon, "You have chosen not to keep my covenant. You have decided not to obey my rules. I commanded you to do what I told you, but you did not do it. So you can be absolutely sure I will tear the kingdom away from you. I will give it to one of your officials. But I will not do that while you are still living. Because of your father David, I will wait. I will tear the kingdom out of your son's hand. But I will not tear the whole kingdom away from him. I will give him one of the tribes because of my servant David. I will also do it because of Jerusalem. That is the city I have chosen." Then the Lord brought an enemy against Solomon. The enemy's name was Hadad. He was from Edom. In fact, he belonged to the royal family of Edom. David had fought against Edom. Joab had been the commander of the army. He had gone up to bury the dead bodies of the Israelites who had been killed in battle. At that time, he had struck down all the men in Edom. In fact, Joab and all the men of Israel stayed there for 6 months. During that time, they destroyed all the men in Edom. But when Hadad was only a boy, he ran away to Egypt. Some officials from Edom went with him. They had served Hadad's father. They started out from Midian and went to Paran. They took some people from Paran with them. Then they went to Egypt. They went to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He gave Hadad a house and some land. He also supplied him with food. Pharaoh was very pleased with Hadad. Pharaoh's wife was Queen Tahpenes. He gave Hadad her sister to be his wife. The sister of Tahpenes had a son by Hadad. The baby was named Genubath. Tahpenes brought him up in the royal palace. Genubath lived there with Pharaoh's own children. Hadad heard that David had joined the members of his family who had already died. He also heard that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead. Hadad heard these things while he was in Egypt. He said to Pharaoh, "Let me go. I want to return to my own country." "Why do you want to go back to your own country?" Pharaoh asked. "Don't you have everything you need right here?" "Yes," Hadad replied, but I want you to let me go anyway. God brought another enemy against Solomon. The enemy's name was Rezin. Rezin was Israel's enemy as long as Solomon was living. Rezin added to the trouble Hadad had caused, so Rezin ruled in Aram. He was Israel's enemy. Jeroboam refused to follow King Solomon. He was one of Solomon's officials. He was from Zeradah in the territory of Ephraim. Here is the story of how Jeroboam refused to follow the king. Solomon had filled in the low places near the palace. He had also repaired the wall of the city of his father David. Jeroboam was a very important young man. Solomon saw how well he did his work, so he put him in charge of all the workers in northern Israel. About that time, Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem. Ahijah, the prophet, met him on the road. Ahijah was from Shiloh. He was wearing a new coat. The two of them were all alone out in the country. Ahijah grabbed the new coat he had on. He tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself. The Lord is the God of Israel. He says, I am going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I will give you 10 of its tribes. Solomon will have 1 of its tribes. I will let him keep it because of my servant David and because of Jerusalem. I have chosen that city out of all the cities in the tribes of Israel. I will do these things because the tribes have deserted me. They have worshipped Ashtoreth, the female god of the people of Sidon. They have worshipped Chemosh, the god of the people of Moab, and they have worshipped Moloch, the god of the people of Ammon. They have not lived the way I wanted them to. They have not done what is right in my eyes. They have not obeyed my rules and laws as Solomon's father David did. But I will not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life. I have done it because of my servant David. I chose him, and he obeyed my commands and rules. I will take the kingdom out of his son's hands, and I will give you 10 of the tribes. I will give 1 of the tribes to David's son. Then my servant David will always have a son on his throne in Jerusalem. The lamp of David's kingdom will also burn brightly in my sight. Jerusalem is the city I chose for my name. But I will make you king over Israel. You will rule over everything your heart desires, so you will be the king of Israel. Do everything I command you to do, live the way I want you to, do what is right in my eyes, obey my rules and commands. That is what my servant David did. If you do these things, those things, I will be with you. I will build you a kingdom. It will last as long as the one I built for David. I will give Israel to you. I will punish David's family because of what Solomon has done, but I will not punish them forever. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam ran away to Egypt. He went to Shishak, the king of Egypt. He stayed there until Solomon died. The other events of Solomon's rules are written down. Everything he did and the wisdom he showed are written down. They are written in the official records of Solomon. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over the whole nation of Israel for 40 years. Then he joined the members of his family who had already died. He was buried in the city of his father David. Solomon's son, Rehoboam, became the next king after him. God gave Solomon wisdom, but he didn't choose wisely. God said to Solomon, "Do everything I command you to do, live the way I want you to, do what is right in my eyes, and I will be with you." Solomon chose to disobey God. Till next time, peace be with you.